Good morning, good morning, good morning. I know it's barely even morning, even for the West Coasters. We're basically at the end of the morning. Unfortunately, I am at war with technology today. It is just not my day. Internet issues, then there's computer memory issues. I don't know what. Whole browser locked up and had to kill all the tabs and then go back through and open them again. Go through and pause all the videos so they're not playing in the background. I've got all these other tabs that I have open. I have to go through and pause all the videos that I have open that I've saved. Someone needs to come up with a better solution. Something that more seamlessly manages tabs but doesn't, like, if I go bookmark these things or like I don't know, consolidate them all into one window and save it or something, I'm never going to come back to it. I will never remember it. So there needs to be some solution to this. If you've got things that you've bookmarked, tabs, videos, whatever that you want to go back to, I need something. I need a solution where they still stay present to me. I remember that they're there, but they're also not like in the way, and they're not. You have to deal with every time the browser opens and closes, all the videos are going to start playing again. First world problems indeed. Welcome to the Astrolabe, ladies and gentlemen. This is our last Astrolabe of the week and the last one for a week. I will be back with you guys after today again next Friday. Just a reminder, Monday through Thursday, I will be up in Washington State visiting family. I'm hoping to maybe get on and maybe do a Twitter space or something like that just to chat with you guys at some point, but I can't guarantee anything because I don't know exactly what our schedule is going to be, and we have a lot of people to see. I have a massive family and a bunch of friends, lived there almost my entire life, so I've got a whole bunch of people I have to connect with, but I'm trying to make sure I carve off a little bit of time to come give you guys some attention. I will be dropping an episode, I believe, on Tuesday of next week. I'll probably set it up if I can. I think Restream will let me premiere it, so it'll go out as a premiere on YouTube and X. Follow me on X at RealKingPilled. A conversation that I had yesterday with a powerful mutual, good friend of the show, Emergent Perspective, talking about Elon Musk as one-man Hanseatic League. Now, it's a members only for right now. I streamed it out to the members yesterday, and you can see if you go to YouTube on the desktop, you see it's badged as a members-only stream. Now, if you want to watch that, you have to become a member. You cannot do it from your phone. You cannot become a YouTube channel member from your phone. It is just absurd that YouTube has it set up this way. I'm guessing, if I had to wager, I haven't done any investigation to this end, but if I had to wager, I would say it's probably because they don't want to pay the App Store commission for having on-app purchases. I don't know if YouTube has any other on-app purchases, so that could prove or disprove that theory, but I think that's what it is. And so you have to go to PC, and when you do that, then you'll see on a PC, you'll see join down here. Or if you were to, I believe if you were to click the video itself, you'll get it there as well. Click the video. Let me see. Yeah, it gives it to you over here as well. So you can become a member of the King Pilled for only $5 a month, and you'll get first access to any of these interview streams that I do. I've got a few other ones that are going to come up here over the next month or so, especially as I'm expecting to spend more time than just this one vacation away. So if you want to get early access to those, you can become a member, only $5 a month, and that's the way to do it. You have to do it through the PC. The conversation was fantastic. It was really good. We're definitely going to set up for at least one or two more. In particular, we talked about the history of the Hanseatic League, how it developed, sort of what differentiated it as an organization, and then the parallels with Elon and how Elon himself is almost functioning as I guess like a consolidation of the things that made the Hanseatic League. The Hanseatic League are in a certain sense consolidated in Elon himself. So he's becoming kind of a shelling point for the new systems of government that are going to arise. So it was a very, very good conversation. And then for the latter part of it, we were talking about an example from 19th century Japan that actually has a lot of overlap with our current situation. He's got some really interesting insights on that. So if you want to hear that, if you want to get early access to it before next Tuesday, then become a channel member. And I see my boy Kalamrosh gifted five memberships. Thank you, sir. 5 new people have become members of the King Pilled. And it looks like, haha, great. So Kate J, Josiah, Tobias, Scott S, and Arthur James, welcome to the King Pilled. It's good to have you guys. Go listen to that conversation. It will drop out to Gen Pop on Tuesday, and I'll also be getting the podcast version of it uploaded to all the podcatchers. So if you want to just grab the audio, that'll be the place to do that. So yeah, okay. That's the housekeeping I had. Also, go join the King Pill Discord. We're gonna keep the call out for that. We've got some new stuff coming here soon. Had a conversation with someone yesterday. I got an exciting new addition that we'll be adding to the experience there. So if you'd like to become a member, go to kingpill.com, sign up. And we will have a schizo stream. Not tonight. Tonight, there's no schizo stream. Friday night, we did it last night. It was very good, talking about crop circles and the CIA cover-up, and then also we watched the most of that Ashton Forbes interview on Redacted, and had a very interesting conversation about the Malaysian flight MH370. So no schizo stream tonight. There will be a schizo stream next Friday because we get back on Thursday. So I'll be around and can do a schizo stream on Friday. So that is the pitch for the King Pill Discord. And then one last bit of shilling. If you want to give some just no strings attached cash, and you don't want to give money to YouTube, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled, or you can click on the link in the description, and you can send some moolah that way. I very much appreciate that. Okay, so we need to get us started off after all that shilling. We need to get the right the right vibe going. So here's the best video on the internet today. Get it, Moodang. That's right. The best thing on the internet right now is this adorable little baby hippo. Some of the comments here are great. Come and take her. I will end your fucking bloodline. Best video is a shaved hamster. I don't know what it is, but this stupid baby hippo is absolutely fucking captivating. I see the stupid baby hippo, and no matter what's going on, I've got a big stupid grin on my face. It is me. Shout out to Josh Ham for sending over the metal hippo baby clip. Got a couple more slop ones for you here. These are both from Uncle Doomer. Shout out to Uncle Doomer. He's a good follow. The millennial boomer Twitter mind cannot comprehend what the Zoomers are doing on Instagram.
Some faders call me the quirked white boy. forget. Bloods call me the alpha of risk. Some segments call me freaky, 'cause I yap about the skibbity of wrist. Baddies yap about me, jinxie. Yapping dong watching long, dong watching long. Well, don't be so sleep honey, no sussy, 'cause there's glycine, 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 glycine at home. 'Cause I'm a mugger, I'm a pogger, I'm a capper, and I'm a yapper. I'm playing Minecraft just for fun. I'm a Rizzler, an imposter, I'm a kid named Finger. A hello want to mug a gap. You.
I have no idea what's happening. Oh man, this is like a there's so much going on here. Andrew Kelly says there are so many skibbity classic rock edits, it gives me hope they actually know the songs. Yeah, this is like this is tradition here. This is how these traditions of the past are being passed on. It takes a truly demented mind to produce this. All the just to try to put yourself in the mind of someone who would conceive of this, who would write this, who would sit down and perform this, much less actually understand it. Straight Buster here, he says it sucks I understood all of that. Oh man, dude, the Zoomer mind is incomprehensible. Cooper is like he's a lot closer to millennial, so I can understand some of it. But I don't even know if Cooper would. I think he would be just as I don't know, upset, perplexed, disturbed by this. Oh man, we have no idea what sort of world we're moving into. Just imagine the person who sat down and produced this is going to be a grandfather someday. Someone is going to say, "Grandpa, tell me about that skibbity mix that you made that went viral on Twitter." Can you even fathom this? We're moving deeper and deeper into the strangest corner of reality. Jay Ford says, "Let me out of this prison that is my generation." There is no escaping it. You've just got to lean into it. Other incredible things are happening in Japan. Another one here from Uncle Doomer. Give me an entire album of this. I like this. I like this music as like to begin with, and having I love seeing the culture of my people being appropriated. Obviously, I am not Appalachian. I did not grow up anywhere near Appalachia. I mean, there's a real. I think people underappreciate the right-wing conservative culture or like Red America culture in the Pacific Northwest. Because it's actually culturally very similar. There's a lot of I don't even know how to describe it. It's a vibe, but there's a lot of affection for Appalachian culture and the cultural values, and they're very similar people. Very, very kind of crunchy, down to earth. So I've always felt an affinity for this world, even though it's like I can recognize there's a difference. It's not me. I'm not Appalachian. I couldn't pass myself off that way. It would just never would be able to. I'm absolutely a West Coast kid, but it's still the culture of my people because I'm an American and this is something distinctly American. So watching this is the whole bullshit about all the cultural appropriation thing is that cultural appropriation is a sign of respect. It's a sign of honor. If you're taking it on, even if you're taking it on to mock it or to make fun of it, you're still identifying it. You're calling it out as a thing, which is kind of the purpose of it. The purpose of a culture is that it exists. So even if you mock someone else's culture, you're still in a sense paying respect to it by acknowledging that it exists, that it's real. And that's really all that like that's the baseline. Anyways, let's see here. Next thing I got. Stephen Fleming. He okay, we could dig into this just a little bit. So Starlink is being used to remotely operate a 320 cat excavator from 200 kilometers away in Tomago Dig Pit, Australia. I would say look out to the abos, but I would imagine there aren't a lot of abos who are operating heavy machinery. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just the my bigotry as a white American, but I just kind of suspect, based on everything that I've seen, the existence of the "Don't Be Rama Rama" video. I kind of suspect that there aren't a lot of abos out there doing it in the first place. But this is these kids that are coming up. This is what they're going to be doing. They're going to be remotely operating heavy machinery, which is obviously a pretext for remotely, as in remote from the planet. About 8 years ago or so, I spent a couple years working as a service writer for a Volvo heavy machinery dealership, and one of my best friends was one of the mechanics there. He's the one who hooked me up with the job, and he's Canadian. He's from like way up north Canada. Grew up in a family of truck drivers, logging truck drivers, and he is himself today a professional truck driver up there. And I remember him telling me, this was probably 2016, something like that, that in Canada, in the logging community up there, he said there's really two distinct types of operators. There's the guy that you would think of probably when you think of like a Canadian truck driver, a Canadian logging truck driver, way out there, just old country boys, basically. There's that. And then the other demographic of operators was a bunch of like city boys, like rich, kind of soft, urban city boys who were totally out of place, like culturally, but they were the ones who operated a lot of the machines, like the skidders and everything, because the way the trajectory of all the machinery was moving to be more and more like a video game. And these were guys who grew up playing video games, and their talent as a video game player was what qualified them or equipped them for this job operating heavy machinery. And we're just moving even further and further in that direction. But funny story here. So this guy says, I will do this for free. And Stephen Fleming says, true story. Caterpillar parked a trailer outside a local trade show. I went in, sat down in the simulator seat, and had a great time driving a simulated bulldozer, full throttle, bouncing over berms, etc. Until the PR rep came in and freaked out. I wasn't playing a simulator. I was remotely operating a real bulldozer at their training grounds 50 miles away, and I damn near destroyed it. Oops. I would love to see someone make a short of this, like a little 10-minute clip or something of the absolute chaos that was unfolding at their training grounds. All of a sudden, this bulldozer just starts trucking around like Moodang, just plowing into stuff, cranking, rattling, everything's falling off of it, and it's this guy here, 200 miles away, just hanging out in a simulator chair. Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. That would be really funny. Okay. Now here's an interesting little bit of political news from the Insider paper. Breaking. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to meet with Donald Trump to establish a relationship. Huh. I wonder why Keir Starmer, of all people, would be publicly meeting with Donald Trump to establish a relationship. Of what use is Keir Starmer, of what use is a relationship with Donald Trump to Keir Starmer if Donald Trump is going to be in prison in a month or whatever? If he's not going to even be the president, why do we need to meet to establish a relationship? What's the ostensible regime narrative pretext for this? There is none. This is why you're not going to get people talking about it. I'll be surprised if it's covered, really. Or maybe it is, because they're just normalizing it. This is a pretty obvious indicator that Trump is being treated as the incoming president. This is happening in a whole bunch of different ways, but this is a pretty significant one. Caroline Alliance says the British government thinks Trump is going to win in November. Jim Sharp, Powerful Mutual, he says the behavior of world leaders seems to understand this fact as well. Lots of them cozying up to Trump recently. And Charles Haywood, the shampoo warlord himself, says the ascension of Trump is written in letters deep as a spear is long in the trunk of the world ash tree. My homeschoolers, my fans of great literature ought to recognize that phrase. So speaking of world leaders cozying up to Trump, do me a favor and hit the like button, folks. We got 69 watching. Nice. And only 21 likes. Not nice. Hit the like button, please. Trump has agreed to meet with Zelensky just to humiliate him for being a sniveling goblin.
Relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, I see. Yeah, but it takes two to tango, and also the...
Trump just has such a way about him. I don't know how well you guys could hear that. That Trump says, I have a great relationship with Putin, and the little goblin says, well, I hope you have more good relations with us. And Trump says, well, it takes two to tango. Just in every single negotiating situation, he's always just occupying the dominant posture. It doesn't help that he's got almost a whole head on the guy, and is just, this looks like dad is showing up to chew out the principal for getting his kid in trouble, and the kid is just standing here kind of, and then he just absolutely mogged him. I hope you have better relations. You can see how subservient he is to him. He's like, I hope you have better relations with us than with him. And Trump's like, oh yeah. Wouldn't that be great? Well, it takes two to tango, bitch. So get in line. Okay. So this is a funny little hullabaloo that cropped up among lib Twitter. There's still a little bit of it out there. Lib Twitter out there was spazzing out about this quote from J.D. Vance that said that car seat rules have led to Americans having fewer children. Wow, that's a weird thing to say. What a weirdo. He thinks car seat rules have a negative impact on birth rates. Why does he even care about birth rates? Well, Snopes is on the case. They found the original video. J.D. Vance said car seat rules are causing Americans to have fewer kids. A popular video showed the 2024 Republican vice presidential candidate making the remark. Now, it's funny. Their whole premise here is that they found the video. People are saying he said this thing. Is that true? We found the video. It's a popular video. Well, if you're advertising the fact that you found it, it wasn't popular. You're making it popular. This is like a slop tactic. When it's like when people create something, or they make a video and they post it and they say, this is going viral. No, bro, you just created it and posted it. It's not, you'd like it to go viral. It may be worthy of going viral, but it's just kind of skeevy when people write like that. Correct attribution. The comment originated from a March 2023 U.S. congressional hearing. The remark appeared to reference a research paper from 2020 titled Car Seats as Contraception. Wait a second. There's a research paper talking about this? Our vice president is aware of a research paper talking about car seats as contraception? A video shared on social media in September 2024 claims to show U.S. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, former President Donald Trump's running mate in the 2024 presidential election, saying American parents aren't having more children because of car seat rules. For example, on September 20, TikTok user What the Actual Karen posted the video showing Vance making the car seat rules remark with the caption, "J.D. Vance, American families aren't having children because of car seat laws. Seriously."
American families aren't having enough children. And I think there's evidence that some of the things that we're doing to parents is driving down the number of children that American families are having. In particular, there's evidence that the car seat rules that we've imposed, which of course I want kids to drive in car seats, have driven down the number of babies born in this country by over 100,000. So as we think about how to make kids safer, I think we should do it in a way that is accommodating to American families. And I encourage your organization to do that.
What's fascinating here is the premise behind it is it's actually kind of interesting because of the car seat rules, because of the size that car seats have to be made to accommodate the car seat rules, and because of the size that cars are made, you can't easily fit 3 car seats or even possibly fit 3 car seats in a single row. So going from 2 kids to 3 means having to you have to get a new car. And you have to get a new car seat. And car seats are really expensive. So the cost of going from 2 kids to 3 is actually pretty significantly affected by the car seat laws, which is an interesting connection that I never would have come up with on my own. But he's aware of it. This kind of obscure paper that was written, J.D. Vance is aware of it. You know what that tells me? That tells me that he takes his pronatalist position very, very seriously. He's actually a serious person trying to do a serious job. This isn't just rhetoric for him. He's actually going and keeping this sort of thing on his radar. Either he has people delegated who are thinking like him and able to go come up with these sorts of things and bring them to his attention, or he's actively going out and looking for them himself. In either case, it means he's actually seriously doing his job. It's true that Vance genuinely made this remark during March 2023 hearing held by the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee in Washington. The hearing's purpose centered on enhancing consumer protections and connectivity in air transportation. During Vance's time to speak, he shared his thoughts regarding the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA's union's proposal of enacting new Federal Aviation Administration mandates requiring children under the age of 2 to be restrained in special seats during flights. After that, he said the words appearing in the September 2024 video posts. The Governor's Highway Safety Association's website hosts a page displaying all state laws of restraining children in car seats while riding in motor vehicles. Meanwhile, the FAA website published safety information about flying with young children, quote, strongly urging, not mandating, that parents place infants and toddlers under the age of 2 in an approved child restraint system or device and not on their laps. As for Vance's comment referencing birth rates in the U.S., the Associated Press reported figures dropped in 2020 to the lowest point since federal health officials started tracking it more than a century ago. So there's his complete remarks here. I'm not going to read all of those. Vance's remark about American families aren't having enough children and car seat rules possibly stemmed from a 2020 preprint research paper about how parents view car seats, considering their price and other factors. Jordan Nickerson, an associate professor of finance at the University of Washington, and David Solomon, a finance professor at Boston College, authored the paper, which has been peer-reviewed and will be published in the Journal of Law and Economics. At least 2 users on social media made a connection between the paper and comment by Vance. One of them, a user on X, posted, "Car seats as contraceptive rhetoric from J.D. Vance likely stems from this 2020 Finance Bro paper." According to the paper, the research involved looking at states' child car seat laws, U.S. Census Bureau data, and car crash data. One of the paper's driving points was the fact that child safety car seats are expensive and that more than 2 car seats or booster seats don't always fit in the back seats of many motor vehicles. The first page also claimed car safety seat laws for children prevented 145,000 births since 1980, an assertion that roughly matches the comment by Vance. Page 12 of the paper noted the authors were not arguing that car seat regulations were the primary reasons for declining birth rates. The authors wrote, "While we do not claim that car seat laws are the primary driver of the secular trend, it is a useful sanity check as to whether the introduction of the laws seems roughly consistent with the declines we observe, which became prominent in the mid-2000s. On the face of it, the introduction of the laws in the 1980s appears somewhat at odds with this, occurring during a period of somewhat rising birth rates." The authors also noted later, "Anecdotally, it is rare to find people who will openly state that car seats concretely stopped them from having a third child. but it is quite common to find people who cite car seats as being a pain and a hassle that they had to deal with, especially in the context of having a third child. The conclusion of the paper appeared to advocate for easing safety restrictions for car seats to increase birth rates. Quoting, child car seat laws reduce fertility by restricting the choice set among women who, at the margin, would like to have another child. Easing such restrictions is not only likely to increase birth rates, but unlike many fertility increasing policies, it does not cost the government anything. Very interesting, interesting debate. I don't really have a strong opinion on it one way or the other, but I do think that it's valuable to. I don't live in a world where I think, oh, we're going to have no regulations on anything at all. I was a libertarian once. Yes, okay, you live in your fantasy land for a little while, but eventually you have to start coming back to the real world. There's going to be safety regulations. It's impossible to eliminate them. However, so if we're going to have safety regulations, then we need to be aware of how the regulations impose certain externalities and what the downstream effects of those are. So then you can't just weigh the regulation in a vacuum. Like, yeah, obviously we want our children to be as safe as possible. We want to make sure that absolutely 100% there's no chance of any harm coming to them. But if in the act of implementing that, we're also reducing the number of children artificially who are being brought into the world, well, then we need to weigh these two things, and we can't go whole hog on one or the other. There has to be some kind of a balance. Like, yeah, you're going to have to expose your kids to a little bit of risk. There is no never expose your kids to risk. It's how can you reasonably manage that risk? But the current state of the regulatory world means we can't have nearly the type of innovation in our technology as we would like to. There is no like free innovation. It all has to be channeled down these super expensive pathways. So you get the libs complaining that we don't have any little like small pickup trucks. All the pickup trucks are super big and massive. Yeah, it's because of regulation. It's literally illegal to make like the little Datsun pickups because of safety and efficiency regulations. It has literally been outlawed for us to actually make competent, effective technology in some of these really important things like cars, for example. So it's good to see the incoming vice president is actually, I mean, it's not like we needed more evidence of this, but he's actually someone who's taking these sorts of things seriously. Okay, so next story I've got here. I've got a, let me see what you guys are saying here in the comments. Mellon says, every bit of additional bullshit parents need to deal with reduces the chance of more kids. I don't know, it makes sense to me. Yeah. Andrew Kelly says, deregulating combustion engines would boost the economy so hard we can't even imagine it. Yes. D. says, I did some research years ago, and it turns out car seat safety tests don't prove they work better, and they may, in fact, cause harm by placing the child up higher. Oh, interesting. I would not at all be surprised about that. It seems that people who conceive of these regulations there's like a natural selection effect, that the people who are conceiving of the regulations are the people who are like least qualified for it. Kate says car seats need to be made much simpler and less expensive to make. I bet you the ones that were less bulky made in the 70s and 80s or even in the 60s were safe enough and probably would be even today. Yeah, and part of that, like, you could make them, all of this could be relatively easily resolved if people were free to innovate outside the narrowly prescribed bounds for all different sorts of safety regulations and such. Like, you could still have the car seats be as big as they are, but they could be formatted more effectively or efficiently. And the costs, all the material costs and everything that go into it could be cut significantly if we were to actually push through the reshoring of American manufacturing and beginning to make stuff here. We have the goods here to make stuff here. It's just been made artificially expensive. Bring that back and have people start making money off of making stuff here. And it raises all ships. Josiah says, when I learned that car seats expire after our first was born, I had a real spit on the hands, raise the black flag moment. Yeah, you get so many of those as a parent. Okay, so this next story, I haven't been able to like find absolute comprehensive proof of it, but Gateway Pundit is writing about it, citing a couple of people that seem trustworthy to me. So I'm going to at least touch on it so you guys can hear what's being discussed. Report, informants claim Trump's plane targeted for assassination, 9 surface-to-air missiles smuggled into the U.S. Recent X-posts have indicated that 9 surface-to-air missiles have entered the U.S. through a New Mexico border point of entry. There's 2 tweets here, and I'll show you guys both of them. One of them is from Laura Logan, who I generally see as trustworthy. She says, urgent. I don't know. I can't figure out what AC means here. If this is like access to an informant. That's the only thing I could really come up with. But anyway, so informant in New Mexico. Trump's plane is the next target for assassination. 9 heat-seeking surface-to-air missiles have been smuggled into the U.S. for this purpose. And there are 3 kill teams already inside the country. Trump has been informed, so have the U.S. intel agencies and other authorities. Money has been transferred to a cartel to push this over the border. These people are cornered and vicious. They will stop at nothing. More to come. The other one here is from this guy who I've never seen before. Analyst, watchdog journalism, 21,000 followers, Sam Shoemate. Know nothing about the guy. He could be literally anyone. Smells like some sort of an intelligence operative of some kind. But we were talking on the Schizo stream last night that I think we're at a point where simply identifying something as a psyop or an intelligence operation of some sort is not one-to-one with identifying it as something from the regime. It's pretty clear that there's sufficient coordination and financing and power and influence behind Trump right now that I would not at all be surprised to see psyops coming from that side, like anti-regime psyops happening. This is why you kind of have to hold everything real lightly. All the different stories and stuff that you hear, you can't just go whole hog into one or the other. Because there's psyops. We're in a psyop climate and they're flying every which way. So this whole thing could be a psyop. And who knows where the psyop begins and where it ends. What facts are real and what are embellished, what are being intentionally inflated. I mean, let me put it this way. I would not be surprised if there are people out there who want Trump elected so much that they are willing to and able to coordinate hits on him or rumors of hits on him to amplify his appeal. I don't think that that's completely out of the question. I don't know that this would be something that would be done in coordination with the Trump campaign. There's all these different groups of people, these different interest groups are loosely affiliated and there's so much overlap and you can't just draw hard and fast lines. Getting too autistic about this stuff becomes a detriment. But in either case, I believe that it's indicative of Trump being installed. We're seeing so many signals now. If you pull yourself out of the narrative and you don't think of this in terms of democratic appeal, but you actually look at the moves that are being made by large, powerful, significant people, they're all signaling their expectation that this is what's going to happen. Maybe they're covering their ass a little bit, but they're all signaling in this direction. So he said 2 independent sources have provided corroborating reporting to our team stating 9 surface-to-air missiles have entered the U.S. through a New Mexico border point of entry. The intended recipients of these weapons are 3 teams operating within the U.S. whose intent is to target President Trump's airplane. As Doc Pete Chambers, again, whoever this guy is, also very much looks like some sort of intelligence operative of some type. He says the appropriate authorities have been notified. I'm posting this in conjunction with Doc Pete Chambers' post since he's gone public with the information. Back to the Gateway Pundit. It says the Gateway Pundit spoke to Dr. Pete Chambers, a former Army lieutenant colonel in Green Beret, who first went public with the story and has devoted years of his life to protecting the southern border. On the evening of September 22, he received a report from a confidential informant. The next morning, Chambers said a second informant corroborated this report with a colleague close to Chambers by the name of Basil Boz. As the founder of the Association for the Recovery of Children, or ARC, a former CIA Intelligence Special Operations Group paramilitary case officer, primarily fights against child sex trafficking at the southern border. That's right, I forgot about this. So he's very obviously an intelligence guy. According to Chambers, one informant was outside of the United States while the other was within. The informants had received information that 9 surface-to-air missiles had crossed into the United States via a point of entry. Both Chambers and Boz were told specifically that these were Misog-3 missiles of Persian origin. However, Chambers said, quote, despite their origin, he said it is not necessarily indicative of Iranian involvement unless proven otherwise, close quote. In fact, one informant asserted, quote, it's not them, close quote, even though Iran often threatens revenge for the 2020 killing of IRGC QF commander Qasem Soleimani that was ordered by then-President Donald Trump. Regardless of the potential for Iran involvement, Chambers said, quote, there's credible evidence that there are 3 three-man teams of non-Persian origin inside the United States, end quote. He also disclosed that, quote, a second tranche of information identified former President Donald Trump's airplane as the target, end quote. Quote, the shoulder-fired missile system is typically used for a low and slow target like a plane or helicopter taking off or landing, the former Green Beret explained, adding that he cannot understand how 9 of the missile systems could make it across the border at a POE. I understand what can make it through a POE and what cannot, Chambers noted. Yes, things can slip through, but this is not one of those things. Chambers argued the only way you can get this through is by paying somebody off at a POE. Although he is not pointing fingers at Border Patrol or anybody, he said, quote, it either happened this way or there was some kind of diversion. He suspects the involvement of the Sinaloa cartel, which controls much of what comes across the border, and someone on our side, quote unquote. Interestingly, Chambers said, quote, some legislators and the intelligence community knew about it. As a result, he said, former President Trump had been briefed extensively on an Iranian threat. So he's making a lot of pretty specific claims here. Since this might not be the case, he recognized 2 options. Quote, Trump is either being really smart and playing along, knowing that it's not Iran, but trying to draw the bad guys out, or he could be being misled. End quote. All this information and more was immediately disseminated to the appropriate authorities. More than anything, the Army veteran wants to avert war and, quote, know the former president in the United States is safe. For this reason, Chambers said he will stay in close contact with Secret Service and other government entities to share any new developments. This point here, Trump is either being really smart and playing along, knowing that it's not Iran, but trying to draw the bad guys out, or he could be being misled. I think anybody who is dogmatically staking out a position on either one of these is engaged in motivated reasoning. They want that to be true, so they're staking it out for that reason. I don't think we can really genuinely identify at this point whether he's being misled and actually thinks that this is the story that it's being cast as, or he's playing along, doing the right thing to just sort of play along with things as they are so that they can draw people out and hit them. I think either one is completely plausible. I would lean toward the former, that he's playing along, but I recognize that's motivated reasoning for me. I want that to be true. I don't know for sure that that's true. However, and this is where I will make another call for people to go listen to the 2-Bit podcast. Jason's 2 episodes now with Stormy Waters. The second one is now available. It's now out there available. You have to become a channel member for him because I think it's the Excelsior Club. It is 100% worth it. You want to hear the conversation that they had but they talk about consciousness. They talk about the sovereign debt collapse. They talk about the bond markets. They talk about Trump and Netanyahu. They cover a tremendous amount of ground. You should absolutely go over to the 2-Bit podcast, subscribe, go listen to that conversation. One thing that's become this was like when he started talking about the Carlyle Group and private equity and tracing the history of the Carlyle Group and the relationship to the Bush administration, and then how the neocon response to 9/11 diverted us away from what were the actual military initiatives. Remember Star Wars? Missile defense? Like, this was the focus of missile defense and space, direct energy weapons. These were the things that the military was focused on until 9/11 happened. And then all of a sudden we have to go fight some camels for a couple of decades, and we're not innovating on this front. And what do you hear Trump and all of his affiliates talking about now? A big iron dome for the United States. We must be the best in space. This is why Jason made the prediction when he talked to disgraced propagandists the other day. He said Trump is being installed because the people behind Trump, the people who have moved themselves behind him, and I'm not talking about politicians, I'm talking about the deep, dark people, where all the fingerprints are there, all the footprints in the sand are there to see that these people have moved themselves behind Trump and they're installing Trump. Jason and I are going to have a conversation about this and go into it in more detail. But we're just going to be elaborating on stuff that he and Stormy are talking about. So if you want to go get it, the stuff that we're going to be talking about, then just go listen to Jason. Go listen to part 1, which I believe is publicly available, and then part 2 is still behind the membership wall for now. But if you want to understand what's happening, you have to listen to this conversation. Those 2 conversations. And there's going to be more coming. So, given that, if you understand that the bulk of American military power, like military power that is localized to and focused on the protection of this geographic plot of land, then that American military power has been effectively privatized. It does not exist as a formal part of the American military, the U.S. military. American military power has been effectively privatized and operates through a huge network of private defense contractors that are led by former generals who retired or were forced into retirement during the Obama administration. This is the actual military might of the United States right now. And I think there's an undeniable connection between this private equity-supported private defense contractors and this disclosure of dark tech UFO thing that is kicking up. I don't think there's any way that these things aren't connected. So if you understand these people, if you understand their motivations, their sentiment, and then you can connect in the whole Tom Luongo, Jamie Dimon, American banking sector's relationship to this whole thing. Like, you start putting all these pieces together and you realize this is not just a counter elite, this is a true elite. These are the people who can govern a society. Are they our guys? No, not necessarily. But they are the enemies of our enemies, and they can fight a lot better than we can, both literally and metaphorically. So do I think that cabal of private equity and American banking, and by American banking, I mean banking that is in America with interests tied to America, that is heavily incentivized to maintain the growth and prosperity of America. So this network of private equity, American banking, private defense contractors, do I believe that they could be engaged in psyops and stuff like this? 100%. They absolutely have the capacity to either respond to this if this is genuinely a foreign intrusion. They have the capacity to mobilize and respond to it. They also have the capacity to generate this in the first place to guide the narrative along. It's a high-stakes game for sure, but I don't think that you can comprehensively, dogmatically stake out either one of these positions. I'm saying both of these positions are viable and plausible, and you have to take you can't just rule one out. You have to take them both seriously. So I think, was that all that I had on that? Oh no, so I have a tweet from Trump here, which is interesting. He says, "Big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting," which is an interesting thing to say. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Standing back and standing by, perhaps. But he's not the president. but he's speaking for the entire U.S. military. Moves were already made by Iran that didn't work out, but they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I am surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Well, that's good to know. We haven't necessarily seen it, but it seems that it's the case. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money to Secret Service. 0 no votes, strictly bipartisan. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together on something. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker. This is strong rhetoric. And interestingly, I didn't see that this had happened, but Congress unanimously approved more funding for Secret Service. Is this another indicator of them recognizing the inevitability of Trump and have all their public rhetoric, but behind the scenes are like, yeah, we need to play ball here? Or are they approving more funding for Secret Service so it can be funneled into other projects, other perhaps independent undertakings by Secret Service? That's another one of those. I don't think we could say for sure one way or the other. It's either one or the other, but we don't know for sure. Josiah said 2 distinct possibilities with almost identical practical implications. Yeah, that's a really good point. You have these 2 possibilities. The one is that this mobilized deep power network behind Trump is responding to a genuine foreign attempt at taking him out. And I think there's plenty of plausibility for that. Like, you think that China or Iran wouldn't be motivated to try to take Trump out, to say nothing of the actual blob itself. Those lines get pretty blurry the more you zoom in on them, but you think that they wouldn't be motivated to try to take him out? Obviously, an incoming Trump is going to be much worse for China and Iran than an incoming Kamala Harris. So I think there's absolutely the people who are scoffing at this, oh, it's just a neocon war propaganda. I don't think that's necessarily the case. It could be. But I think it's also plausible to me that these are legitimate attempts being made on his life by non-blob affiliated people. Like, the blob might be facilitating it or allowing it to happen, whether through incompetence or intentionality. But I don't think you can completely write off the possibility that Trump is there's people legitimately taking shots at him, motivated by actual foreign interests. So whether it's this deep power network moving behind Trump, responding to that and protecting him and motivating him to keep the narrative going in public while they deal with it in private, whether it's that or whether it's them actually creating the pretext in the first place, setting this whole psyop up themselves because they've determined it's more complicated that way. But like, if someone put a gun to my head and said I had to place a bet on a color here, then my bet would be that it's legitimate foreign intrusion, actual foreign influences going after Trump, being facilitated by segments within the blob, and it's the power network that has formed behind Trump responding to and containing that. And so they have their own little operatives and stuff that they're like sort of parallel to the mainstream, but now because of Twitter, because of Elon and all of his proxies and their willingness and ability to amplify these sorts of stories and force them into the media, make the media cover them and talk about them and direct the narrative, then they're functioning through these sort of parallel operations to manage the narrative and facilitate the installation of Trump. That would be my assessment of it if you put a gun to my head. But I'm not going to bet my life savings on that. Speaking of Elon, he's doing his signal boosting thing. I love his little wow or interesting or exclamation point. This one he says, interesting. Voter registration changes from November of 2020 to July of 2024. Republicans up 393,000. Democrats down 3.6 million. 3.6 million. And independents are up 1.8 million. what I would really like to see, nobody was ever paying this close of attention for us to be aware of this kind of narrative, but I would love to see what sort of voter registration changes there have been in the past from election cycle to election cycle. Like, is it normal to just clear off millions of people from the voter rolls every year? Is that something that's happened in the past and we're going through just kind of the ordinary process? Even if it is the case, I highly doubt that the disparity has been this significant. There's no way to read these numbers as anything except for a resounding rebuke of Democrat power. No matter how you actually bear it out, whether it's, wishy-washy shit libs who just don't want to be affiliated with the Democrats, so they're just registering as independents. If it's people just becoming completely apathetic about the process at all and just not registering whatsoever. If it's legitimate like illegal registration scheme that's been uncovered and cut off. In any case, any explanation of this is a resounding rebuke of the regime. And of course, Elon is going to signal boost it. Gallup, for the first time in decades, more voters identify as GOP. This whole story with the New York City mayor is pretty fascinating because he is just an absolute regime creature. But then he decided that he wanted to speak out on his own, kind of take up his own cause, and started speaking against illegal migrants. And what do you know? He winds up being indicted on federal charges. And our great God Emperor called it.
I will say this. I watched about a year ago when he talked about how the illegal migrants are hurting our city and the federal government should pay us and we shouldn't have to take them. And I said, you know what? He'll be indicted within a year. And I was exactly right, because that's what we have. We have people that use the Justice Department and the FBI at levels that have never been seen before. So I wish him luck. I don't know anything about what he did, but I told a lot of people right over there, that group was saying, sir, you were right about that. When they mentioned that, I said, they came in and he was pretty strong about it. He said, this is really unfair to make us carry this burden. We shouldn't be doing this. This is New York City. I mean, your parks are loaded up. I just passed recently Madison Avenue, the Roosevelt Hotel. It's like nobody would recognize it. That's Midtown. But he came out very strongly against it. He was right, by the way, because it's ruining our country. He was honest. And I said, he will be indicted within a year. And that's what happened. And I noticed the indictment's very old. It goes back a long time. Well, I had the same thing. They went way before the statute of limitations. So I wish him well, but I said that he will be indicted because he did that. You take a look. That's what they do. These are dirty players. These are bad people. They cheat, and they do anything necessary. These are bad people. And we need an honest Justice Department. We need an honest FBI, and we need it fast. Yeah.
Hear, hear, Mr. President. Okay, so we've been enjoying dunking on Mr. Shabanisky, Mark Shabanisky, and Autism Capital unearthed this one. It says, whenever we wonder why Mark Cuban hates Trump so much, we think about this video. Now you're getting further evidence here of just how much of a little man this guy is. I can't believe I used to like him. He is such a queef.
I had a bar when I was in college that got shut down because I had a wet T-shirt contest, and the girl that won was under investigation for prostitution. So then I sold that, and then went down to Dallas, slept 6 guys, a 3-bedroom apartment, started a technology company, built that up, sold it. Long story short, we started this company called Broadcast.com, be able to listen to Indiana basketball over the internet.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Took that public, Hoosiers. Took that public in 1998. It was the biggest IPO in the history of the stock market. A year later, we sold to Yahoo for $5.7 billion.
Oh, my God.
And the next thing you know...
Wow, good for you. You know Donald Trump, for example? He's sort of our billionaire.
So real quick, says he really likes to brag about that IPO, but he doesn't tell you what happened next. Cuban sold most of his Yahoo stock that same year, netting over $1 billion. Founder Chris Jaeb, whose stake was diluted to less than 1% of the company, received approximately $50 million from the sale. The service became a part of Yahoo Broadcast Services. Yahoo shut down much of its broadcast services in 2002, and Broadcast.com has since been discontinued. Yahoo's high-profile purchase of Broadcast.com has since been called one of the worst internet acquisitions. So he sold something worthless, made out like a bandit, and since then gets to pretend that he knows what he's doing. Let's continue.
When I was in college, I'll tell you my quick Donald Trump story.
You met the man?
I've met him.
Yeah.
The first time I met him, our company had just gone public, and biggest IPO in history of the stock market, and I got invited to a Super Bowl party at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Beautiful place. And so we're down by the pool hanging out, and there's this terrace, whatever, all these people are eating. And here comes Donald, and, you know, that's back when I was single. I thought there would be all these hot women, but anyways, there was Donald. And so he comes around and he's introducing himself to people and walks up and said, "Hi, I'm Donald Trump." Doesn't even listen for our names and anything. And he goes, "You know what? Someday you'll be able to sit up there with the rich people." And walks off.
Oh, my.
I'm like,
He got fucking mogged, and he's butthurt about it. What a tiny man. You know what's funny here? He's talking about how he's all bummed out that there's expected. I'm single, and I thought there was going to be a bunch of hot chicks, and I was going to go slap some chicks' asses, and wow, have times changed. But the great irony with this is he's wearing a frickin' Ben Roethlisberger jersey when he says this. So it shows you how long ago this was. He would have, if this clip aired like 10 years later, he would have been eviscerated out of reality for wearing a Ben Roethlisberger jersey, talking about how he was doing this wet t-shirt contest thing, and there was a chick who was a hooker or something, and then he was all bummed out because he was single, and he went to this party and thought there was going to be a bunch of bikini chicks he could hit on and leer at, while wearing a Ben Roethlisberger jersey. An epic mog. Trump is the mog father. And now he's been mogged by Elon. He is the apotheosis of loserdom. Just a complete loser. Do me a favor and hit the like button, folks. Next, we are going to talk about the cartels. This is another interesting little story that's been going around, and not at all unrelated, I think, to the rumor of the surface-to-air missiles being brought across by the Sinaloa cartel. And see, here's where this stuff gets really... This is where this stuff goes beyond just politics. If you're someone whose property, whose assets, whose legacy is rooted to American soil, then you're not going to be a real big fan of a bunch of State Department eggheads facilitating cartels rampaging around in your property. This is like actual real power politics stuff. This isn't just the official narrative, talking head level discourse. This is the real stuff. This is make or break type of political power machinations. So Colin McClellan says, this is at FrackSlap on Twitter. He is used to work in the oil field. Now I build startups in the energy industry, a CEO of D Wildcatters, also into MMA and grappling. He says there's a lot of talk on Twitter about cartels stealing oil in Texas. I see a lot of people saying it's not true, but I'm going to tell you what I've been hearing because I do believe it's true. Number one, I first heard about it last year at a roundtable meeting with Senator Ted Cruz, Midland City officials, and oil execs. One of the E&Ps was having thousands of barrels stolen per day. Thousands of barrels of oil stolen per day. There was a lot of concern around the influx of illegal immigrants and their involvement. I believe the number I was told was 8,000 known illegal Cuban immigrants in the area. Number two, I talked to security personnel at one of the largest Permian producers, and they confirmed, telling me the amount of theft was insane. It also sounds like there's very little to zero support from any law enforcement or government agencies. Number three, I overheard an operations meeting from the largest Permian producer, and the main topic of the meeting was the amount of oil theft they were dealing with. One of the talking points was that one of their service providers couldn't service a job because all of their equipment had been stolen. Not just from that location, but all of their equipment. They also told me that it's not just oil and high-dollar equipment being stolen. They even take everyone's used boots and coveralls. Number 4, last month I was in Midland at lunch with a senior ops engineer. While sitting there, he gets a message that one of his pumpers was pistol whipped and beat up as he drove up on a group of people stealing from a tank battery. In all of these conversations, no one seems to think that it's normal petty theft of water haulers skimming oil. Definitely believe that it's a larger operation and highly organized crime. And what he was quote tweeting this guy who said, word on the street is the cartels are stealing oil now. Had 450, is it BBLs? Is that barrels? I don't know what BBLs is. 450 BBLs stolen Sunday night. Put cameras up. Robert Sterling, Powerful Mutual, says, appreciate all the detail here. Wow. And he says, pretty serious issue given the importance of the Permian to the U.S. Based NFT Maxi says, this is getting into more terrorist militant territory beyond just cartel drug activity now. Daniel Sweet says there was a ring that stole more than 2 million gallons of oil from South Texas nearly a decade ago. And that's the ones we know about. These coordinated oil field thefts have been happening for quite a while. He says, yep, oil field theft is nothing new, but there's definitely a noticeable spike in the Permian that's unusual. They stole my square toes and left me their round toes. So, yeah, like this is the sort of stuff that goes beyond ordinary politics. This is how you drive away members of the regime coalition. You can't frame this in any way as like some sort of galaxy-brained regime operation. Like, you think Texas oil money is just copacetic about having millions of barrels of oil stolen from them? This is the sort of deep American power structure that has to the public eye lain dormant for a few decades, and they don't want to lay dormant anymore, because continuing to lay dormant to not enforce their influence on the public happenings means that they're just having their livelihood, their legacy, everything that they've lived for, just sold out to effectively European interests. They're not going to take that laying down. So here's, I've said before that the change in all the voter registration numbers, the massive decline in mail-in ballots, like this indicates that there's a coordinated operation to try to suppress the fortification. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the fortification is eliminated. This is why I say it's more likely that Trump is installed through the Supreme Court than that Trump is installed by simply just an overwhelming victory because they just eliminated all the voter fortification. It's very possible that the fortification is being relocated to a different vector. And one of those could be voting machines. There's a lot of evidence that the voting machines were real sketchy last time around. And here's how easy it is to hack into one of them. This is on Patrick Bet-David's podcast. I'm going to speed this up just a wee bit because it's a little bit of a longer video.
This is a WinVote machine, and for the reasons that we don't want to put a logo, this voting system technology company name is just a fake name, because I have been using this particular machine in filming a number of training videos, some of those for the government, just to show vulnerabilities like USB vulnerability, which we are going to be using. This machine actually have many vulnerabilities, and at the time when this was still in use, this was called the worst voting machine used in the United States. The worst voting machine used in the United States.
And where was this used, Harry?
That was used in Maryland. It was in Virginia. I don't have the complete list what all places it was used, but it was fairly widely used. So what we are going to be exploiting here is a USB vulnerability. The USB vulnerability is amazingly good to identify because it's easy to mitigate. You just stopped access to the USB port. I have plugged here a extension cable, just that we can see that the actual USB port is behind there, and it's accessible by the voter. I'm using here a commercially available USB computer called Bash Bunny. It can be many other devices. This is just an example. This particular device is $120. You can buy it from online. And I have pre-programmed it. And if this would be a real attack, the attack will take 6-7 seconds. I have slowed it down and make it visible so that the audience can see what has happened. So when I'm plugging it in, this is the Schrodinger's USB stick is always wrong way. So the computer starts. And once it's started, it's doing its magic. The moment you see that the screen is changing, that is when the hack would have been already done and I would be unblocking it. But I'm just showing this number of things. So now it would have been done. It's showing you the program manager. It's showing you now the command prompt. And this is where all the votes live. So I'm just showing that the directory where all the votes would be. At this point of time, this stick has already complete control over the system. So at this time, anything can be done, anything can be changed. And as the last thing, I'm just showing the fake results just to show that can be done. It's just to show that how the system is controlled. So this is a good example of a hack. And as I said, only reason why anything is seen on the screen and why it's this slow is because I artificially slowed it down and made it visible so that the audience can see that there's a control over the voting machine. This particular machine has many other vulnerabilities, way worse than this one. So that's why it's very good that this machine is no longer in use in the US. And this is also showing how demonstrating the vulnerabilities work, because that causes changes. And for example, removal of this machine from being used in the US.
So now, what is it doing right now, Howard?
Nothing. It's already, the whole hack was done. But if this would have been an election, I could have gone to the database and, for example, changed the votes. That's one possibility.
How much of it could you have changed?
Anything.
You could have gone from 51 to 73.
Add a new candidate who was not even on the ballot. It doesn't matter. Because if you have total control over the system,
right,
you can do anything you want. As I say, one example was that we add a new candidate and make that candidate to win. It would be obvious.
The president of DEF CON is the one who won, George Washington. That's the one you're saying.
Yeah.
I got what you're saying. So is this like to the average hacker? Is this machine a joke? How easy it is?
It is a joke.
And how many years ago was it used?
I think this was last time used in 2012.
God, 12 years ago.
And also, just an example that when this was brought first time to DEF CON, we had a professor from Denmark, and in less than half an hour, he hacked into this machine wirelessly. He didn't even touch the machine. He took complete control over this machine wirelessly, because this voting machine happens to have a wireless Wi-Fi access.
So, okay, so is it fair for one to speculate and question that any of the electronic voting machines we've used previously, possibility that could have been hacked, possibility that the winners were flipped because somebody got into it?
So again, the fundamental problem with this voting machine is it doesn't have a paper ballot. So if somebody hacked this kind of machine and would have manipulated it, there is no evidence. That's why we need paper ballots, and especially we need hand-marked paper ballots. Because if the results are called into question, now you can go and hand count those ballots and verify that the outcome of the election is right.
He says it's like when Professor J. Alex Halderman used a pen to hack a Dominion machine in front of a federal judge a few months ago. I pray for the day when we'll finally ditch these machines and start hand counting all our votes like a serious country. So, just at the same time that this video comes out, we get this. Breaking, Biden's DOJ has sued 2 rural Wisconsin towns after they switched from including electronic voting machines to using only paper ballots in their elections and counting them by hand. And what was the basis for this? Straight from the DOJ's Office of Public Affairs, Justice Department sues Wisconsin townships to ensure accessible voting. The Justice Department announced today that it has filed a complaint against the town of Thornapple, Wisconsin, in the state of Wisconsin for violations of Section 301 of the Help America Vote Act, which requires polling places to be equipped with at least one voting machine that is accessible to voters with disabilities during federal elections. The department also secured an agreement with the town of Lawrence, Wisconsin, to resolve its complaint alleging HAVA violations. Our democracy works when voters with disabilities have the right to vote on the same terms as any other voter, said Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. By failing to offer accessible voting machines, Thornapple and Lawrence shirked their responsibilities under the Help America Vote Act to provide equal access to the ballot for all voters. We must ensure that all Wisconsin towns, and indeed all jurisdictions throughout our country, fulfill their duty to guarantee all voters equal access to the ballot. We commend Lawrence for working with the Justice Department to swiftly remedy this violation by taking simple action to ensure that federal elections are accessible to all eligible voters. These people are just twisted, man. Disabled people need a voting machine. That's the only way that that we can give them equal access. You can't have them like write it with their foot or have a designated proxy there with them that they bring along. Have a frickin' notary whose responsibility is to sit there in the at the voting station, and when the person comes up and it's like Stephen Hawking or something, and they roll up, "Hello, I do not know how to write," and then he just says, have some process for them to to say this is the vote, how I want it to vote, and then just have the notary verify it. There's so many different ways that you could resolve. No, we have to have a voting machine. They're transparently corrupt. This is the Longhouse made into law. We're going to use sympathy for disabled people to ensure our ability to continue to undermine and distort the elections. The wall for all of these people. So speaking of communists, oh, come on. Open tab, close tab. This guy here, Jan LeCun. I just realized that this is a man. All this time, I've seen people talking about Jan LeCun, and I had actually looked at his picture. Even looking at his picture, you almost can't tell. I thought that this was some old butch lesbian. No, it's an actual dude. Professor at NYU, chief AI scientist at Meta, researcher in AI, machine learning, robotics, etc., ACM Turing Award laureate. He has been in a pissing match with Elon Musk for months now. If you could take all of these like Silicon Valley guys, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, even Labology, JD Vance, any of those guys, this would be like the chief villain on Twitter right now. It'd like be him and Sam Altman. So Elon Musk signal boosts something Jim Jordan said. He said, Democrats, open the borders, send illegal aliens to your city, and then vote against deporting illegal aliens who commit violence. You're not safe with borders or Kamala Harris in charge. Elon says, true. And this fucking commie scum says, okay, Elon, let's say you run the government. Upheavals in various countries are causing lots of migrants to leave their home and attempt to enter the U.S. You have nothing to do with this surge. It's just happening because of events abroad. You were in charge and must deal with it. What would you do with these people? It's just happening because of events abroad. Which is such a bullshit narrative. I'm really tired of hearing Americans be told, "Oh, it's your government's fault that the if you wouldn't be over there killing all the brown people, they wouldn't be coming here." They're not coming because they're getting killed over there. Americans are not responsible for this. The people occupying the American government are doing this irrespective of the conditions of the other countries. This is a stupid libertarian talking point that needs to die. One, half of them don't just cross the border. They come in legally on a tourist visa or temporary worker visa and overstay their visa. That represents almost half of illegal immigration in the U.S. You were one of those once, and so are many of our friends in tech. I'm not going to read the rest of this because you get the point. What would be your solution? I'm really curious. Devin Erickson. He's becoming a regular here. One of the best long posters on the internet. He says, when a communist asks you a question, his goal is almost never to get your answer. His goal is to get you to accept, without noticing, the false premise that the question is based on. For example, he will ask, what would you do under capitalism to solve the problem of wealth inequality? He doesn't care about your answer. He's not even going to listen. His real goal is to get you to submit to his false premise, the idea that wealth inequality is a problem. It is, of course, not a problem at all, but an indicator of a healthy economy. Wealth equality, on the other hand, is a symptom of universal poverty. The communist knows your initial impulse will be to answer hypotheticals honestly because he knows you are a capitalist and have principles. You must never forget that he, being a communist, does not have principles, only the one law of Marxism. Thou shalt not be better than me in any way. You must never treat him as if he is speaking in good faith. Jan is a crypto-communist. He doesn't care how you answer any of his questions. He just wants you to answer them because if you do, you've accepted his bullshit premises. That's his real goal. All the questions are just an innocuous coating to hide the poison pill. The dregs of the third world are not coming to our shore because of events abroad. The third world is in no worse condition than it ever was. In fact, capitalism has made things better for them than ever. They're coming here because certain groups of people want them here and have not only opened the city gates, but have made travel arrangements. We are not obliged to issue a single tourist visa, temporary worker visa, or any other type of visa. That is entirely up to us. And if we do choose to issue them, then overstaying them is a crime, which we can establish any sort of legal penalty to which we choose, up to and including death by stoning. We have no moral obligation to take in a single asylum seeker or even to review their cases. The fact that some infiltrator with no allegiance to America managed to get into office and sign a treaty against American interests does not trump American sovereignty. Some other nations might send us a strongly worded letter the way they do with China when it drives tanks over its own citizens. So what? Borders are not difficult or expensive to defend. They're cheap and easy to defend. Nations have been defending borders for thousands of years. Sometimes they did it with nothing but Bronze Age technology. You just build a wall and defend it with patrolling troops. Walls are not expensive and they work great unless you don't defend them. That's why people have been building walls since the moment we figured out how to build anything at all. So this is the communist algorithm again. 1, make up a bunch of bullshit that isn't so. 2, ask you a hypothetical question based on the bullshit. 3, hope you won't notice the bullshit because you're focused on the question. So how would I defend the border in the real world instead of Jan LeCun's bullshit, disingenuous communist fantasy? Simple. People in organizations in this country are importing illegals. Those are organizations organized for the purpose of conspiring to commit criminal acts. In other words, organized crime organizations, which means that every member can be prosecuted under RICO, because one of the predicate offenses which triggers RICO is bringing in, aiding, or assisting aliens in illegally entering the country, if the action was for financial gain. If those organizations received money from anyone else to do this, that's financial gain. If any of the employees of these organizations drew a salary, that's financial gain. Ergo, they are mobsters and they can be prosecuted like mobsters. Throw some in prison for 15 or 20 years, confiscate their assets, and the others will flee the country. Then arrest and prosecute anyone employing illegals the way we used to. Then arrest and prosecute any government official providing them with taxpayer-funded services. Then start rounding the illegals themselves up precisely the way we used to. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. These are third world barbarians with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They are uneducated, poor, unorganized, and stupid. The only reason they are any threat at all is they have powerful people in this nation who want them here and paying to make that happen and using the power of the government to prevent the people who belong here from resisting. This is not a humanitarian crisis. It is the deliberate use of third world populations as a bioweapon. The weapons are easy to deal with once the wielders have been taken out. Absolutely based. Hear, hear. Jay Ford says, I kneel. Now, I know that there's some who might get tripped up on the use of communist and capitalist in this way. The actual autistic technical distinctions of them are meaningless. Capitalist is good guy, communist is bad guy. If you're a bad guy, if you're our enemy, you're a communist. If you don't like it, stop being a communist. And we get to decide when you stop being a communist. Because we're in charge. Speaking of communists, Thomas Chatterton Williams at The Atlantic has got to go. He wrote this response to this chick, and I'm going to read an article here in a minute that quotes it. But, well, actually, you know what? I'm just going to go to the article first, and then I'm going to get Kryptos' thoughts on it. So his article is, Elon Musk is debasing American society. He's not just enabling trolls, he's personally endorsing their posts. Zoom this in a bit so I can actually see it. To paraphrase former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, you wage mimetic warfare with the unsubstantiated smear you've got, not the one you want. It just so happens that the one most recently deployed by Donald Trump is the kind that proliferates these days on X. When Trump declared, seemingly out of nowhere, during his debate with Vice President Kamala Harris that Haitian immigrants living legally in Springfield, Ohio were, quote, eating the dogs, eating the cats, eating the pets of the people that live there, he drew in comprehension, followed by widespread ridicule from mainstream audiences. What came next was a furious and revealing national conversation on important questions of immigration, race, assimilation, work ethic, diet, traffic violations, duty to struggling native-born constituencies and to newcomers alike, the limits of tolerance, the inevitability of its opposite, the nature of truth, and much else besides. But on the social media platform that had provided him with the paranoid talking point in the first place, the discussion and reproduction of Trump's outburst immediately gave way to the naked and sustained expressions of racism that have become emblematic of the website over the past 2 years. When Elon Musk acquired Twitter and changed its name to X, he promptly went about stripping its capacity for content moderation, reinstating extremist accounts, and boosting the reach and visibility of the worst trolls. Yeah, Elon's greatest hits. I have heard many blithe rationalizations of the pragmatic and even salutary benefits of knowing what people really think. But the pervasiveness and normalization of what was, until very recently, niche and stigmatized bigotry has been astonishing to witness. Although there was plenty of racism on the internet during Trump's first and second campaigns, it wasn't this ubiquitous on mainstream networks such as Twitter. So wait a second. There's mainstream audiences are ridiculing it, and there's a paranoid talking point on Twitter, and yet down here, Twitter is a mainstream platform or mainstream network. On Musk's X, the racism has now become so relentless and self-confident that it amounts to a genuine qualitative difference. Indeed, it does. If I had to summarize the intent of X's algorithm at this point, it would be twofold, Sam Harris remarked this week on his Making Sense podcast. The first is to make Elon even more famous than he is, and the second is to make every white user of the platform more racist. If you could pipe the X algorithm into your brain through Neuralink, I think you'd probably jump off the table and go out and buy a Cybertruck and then join a white supremacist militia. That's the vibe I get when I spend a few minutes scrolling the homepage. I can't wait to put these people in a cage. Consider a story shared in the aftermath of Trump's tirade by a woman named Rebecca Christofi, posting under the handle @rquietlyreading. She generated 1 million views and 11,000 likes for an anecdotal screed about her undergraduate experience sharing a dorm room with an older Haitian student. The roommate had a boyfriend back in Haiti whom she talked with on the room's landline until very late at night. Quote, "It was torture. I could not sleep. I was barely able to stay awake in classes, but I was afraid to say anything to her." When she finally confronted her roommate, asking her to take the phone out to the door, to take the phone out the door to talk, the young Haitian woman, quote, "started to cry. How she was affecting me seemed to never have occurred to her. The complete lack of consideration and her shock when I addressed it was hard to wrap my head around. It's just not how most Americans function." It's almost like culture matters. The post continues. This is the issue, isn't it? If you're bringing in thousands of people from other countries whose values and ideals differ drastically from yours, you're inevitably going to change your homeland. Based normie woman. At the end, she adds a side note, accusing the roommate of stealing clothes from her and saying she also cried when I asked her about it. When one user pushed back, quote, "I am sorry that your parents did not prepare you to tell your roommate when you wanted to go to bed. They failed you. You are projecting this failure onto the American value system in a way that is quite unfair. It was the way you were dressed." That response led to a round of even more vehement and explicit racial hatred. You're so smug when you know the problem is that blacks are loud, obnoxious, and inconsiderate. They also struggle with impulse control. You wouldn't tell a black that was loudly and rudely blasting music on the subway to cut that shit out because he'll probably try to kill you, someone wrote. Nigs are gonna nig, wrote another account that was verified through a paid subscription. I reached out to Christofi to ask if she'd intended her post to be read as invective against Haitians, and she replied in an email that no, it was just a story. It's telling, triggered by the recent happenings in Springfield. She, quote, "certainly did not expect so many people to see it or to respond with the hatred and vitriol that they did," end quote. She said that people have since threatened her life and livelihood, which is, of course, egregious. As he threatens her life and livelihood. This fucking guy knows exactly what he's doing. And yet, in her message to me, she also doubled down on what she said were accurate details about the effect of mass immigration. If, she wrote, quote, "the details coming out of Springfield are conveyed accurately, they only support my statements. For example, the mayor and city council appear to be receiving financial kickbacks for replacing a third of the population of their town with immigrants," end quote. This is a perfect example of the Great Replacement theory in action. The idea that immigrants are being welcomed as part of a plot to steal control of the country away from white voters. And it is not true. There is no evidence that the residents of the town are being in any sense replaced. The celebration parallax in action. This thing that's happening, there's no evidence that it's happening. There's no evidence that they're being replaced. They're just being replaced. The choice of a quote from G.K. Chesterton that she shared at the end of the email dampened the sympathy her message might have otherwise elicited. Quote, "the definition of the true savage is that he laughs when he hurts you and howls when you hurt him." This chick absolutely mogged him. Men like this have no place in America. I am far from a hypersensitive snowflake on constant lookout for racial grievance, nor am I someone who could plausibly be accused of a lack of concern over creeping censoriousness, particularly on the previous iteration of Twitter. On the contrary, I believe that maximal tolerance of free expression is crucial to American democracy, and I am deeply skeptical of both formal and informal censorship. Wait for it. I believe that it is vital for all of us, not just college students, to be put in contact with views we passionately disagree with. But But, okay, so that means ignore everything you just said. But through his revealed beliefs and example, Musk has debased the argument about the value of free speech and reduced the terms of this debate to its crudest possible units. With his nearly 200 million followers, a sizable portion of whom amount to cultists, he is responsible for tuning X's digital culture into a gratuitously repulsive frequency. It's repulsive. It's like when the one exception I will make is Tucker Carlson. Any other man, you can't say something is disgusting. I'm weaning it out of my own vocabulary. If a man talks about something being disgusting or repulsive, you might as well just say, that's yucky. Ew, that's yucky. Astonishingly active and available on the platform that he so bombastically controls, he not only enables bad actors, he also personally praises and promotes them. And here's the reason why I'm sharing this whole thing. In part for Kruptos's response, I'll read you after this, but also because of this part. I missed this. Just a week before the presidential debate, Musk wrote, not this part here, but what's coming up in a minute. Musk wrote, very interesting, worth watching, about a conversation between Tucker Carlson and the amateur historian and Nazi sympathizer Daryl Cooper. In that talk, Cooper claimed that Hitler had killed millions of Jews unintentionally, wrong, and that Winston Churchill was the real villain of the Second World War. Right. Musk has since deleted the post, but such an endorsement from X's apex user makes the spread of anti-Semitism not just likely, but inevitable. This is an example of woke more correct. All the people who were blackpilling and spurging out about Elon deleting it completely missed the fact that him tweeting it and leaving it up for a day meant that him deleting it doesn't mean anything. One noxious meme that has been circulating lately depicts a smirking, hook-nosed figure wearing a kippah and rubbing his hands together. Behind him is a wall of cardboard boxes labeled open borders, feminism, cultural decay, globalism, the Holocaust, hate crime laws, climate change, gender bending, usury, porno, and so on. It's all Jewish, literally all of it, a verified account claimed. Oh man, it's going to open in the window. I didn't want it to do that. Stop. Cease. Go away. I didn't look to see if this was still up, but it'd be funny if it is. Oh my God. Everything is so slow. Yeah. Jennifer Say is crying about it. This image, too, is a reference to the Great Replacement theory and the idea that Jews are behind it. These sorts of grotesque posts predate Musk, but under his stewardship, they have absolutely lost their taboo. How could they not? As my colleague Yair Rosenberg has reported, let me hear what Yair Rosenberg has to say. Musk has endorsed that conspiracy theory himself. Last year, a Jewish user responded to an anti-Semitic content on X by posting, to the cowards hiding behind the anonymity of the internet and posting, Hitler was right. You got something you want to say? Why don't you say it to our faces? A small-time white nationalist account wrote back to attribute anti-Semitism to minorities and blaming it on the Jews. And here is the post. This is from fact checker Eric at Breaking Bot. He says, okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face, there it is. And Elon, you have said the actual truth. I don't know how I missed this when this happened in November of last year. He said the ADL unjustly attacks the majority of the West, despite the majority of the West supporting the Jewish people in Israel. This is because they cannot, by their own tenets, criticize the minority groups who are their primary threat. It's not right and needs to stop. Back to Chatterton Ballsack. He quoted that. Rosenberg pointed out that his exchange would have languished in obscurity had Musk not replied to this bigoted bromide with 6 words. You have said the actual truth. Here's something else that Musk, Trump's wealthiest and most prominent backer, lamented not long ago. Racism against white people is the only kind of discrimination that's allowed. As the depressing discussions of Haitians and Jews and black people in general have made so inescapably plain, from the top of the Republican ticket down to the most obscure account on X, that is anything but true. I hereby sentence Thomas Chatterton Ballsack to daily swirlies. So here's Kryptos' response. Actually, he had two threads about it. The first one here. Rebecca's response to her roommate was completely normie, wholesome even. This is how my mother, a saintly woman in her 80s, understands mass immigration. This is what really frightens the regime. It's not the racists who oppose mass immigration. It's decent, normal people. And so regime stooges like Atlantic writer Thomas Chatterton, Thomas, he said Catterton, I wonder if that was intentional. Thomas Catterton William, he totally butchered his name. Thomas Catterton Ballsack, what? No, the third, must be sent out to demonize a normal, decent American for the crime of noticing. Rebecca was targeted for writing this. She had to delete her account. She got inundated. The poor woman. These kinds of cowards who routinely demonize normal Americans for noticing. He is quite eager to punish someone for the crime of noticing, but the moment anyone turns the spotlight on them, they run and hide behind their walls. You don't hate journalists enough. And then after he wrote the post, Kryptos responded with, this. He says, well, the article that Thomas Catterton Ballsack promised he was writing for The Atlantic was published. It's a hateful piece of propaganda. The real crime, they say, is not mass immigration, but noticing and daring to talk about it. This is what Rebecca did. Rebecca's crime? She heard the headlines and made the connection between what she was hearing from others on Twitter and from the news outlets willing to talk about it, connecting it to her experiences living with a Haitian roommate in college. The story was pretty anodyne. It's gone now because Thomas Catterton Ballsack and The Atlantic took it upon themselves to destroy her and send a message to others. Don't you dare say anything or we'll come for you too. The Atlantic is now a regime enforcement mechanism. They will destroy you for the crime of noticing and sharing stories. Mass immigration must continue. It's been deemed vital for the future of the regime. Your lives, your communities must all pay the price for the mass immigration agenda. You must see with clear eyes what is being done. They want to intimidate you into silence. And The Atlantic knows that more and more among the professional classes are starting to see, and so they must be made to fear. They named Rebecca. They threatened her livelihood. They created enough heat already that she's been forced to close her Twitter account and retreat to silence. You do not hate journalists enough. And finally, they want to make Elon Musk the chief criminal here for enabling us to notice the effect of regime actions, including that of mass immigration. This is why he is high on their target list and the one named as enemy in the title and content of the piece. Shout out to Trashcan Jack Barbarian. He says, anything I have to say about TCW would violate TOS. Absolutely. And just so you guys are aware, I did not actually give them a click. They're not worthy of my click. Pray for Elon. Pray for Donald. And hit like on the stream. Got a couple last stories here for you guys. First of all, we need to talk about some Zen. We've got another banger headline. Now, obviously, if you're up to date, you know that Zen is old news. Now we're all just biding our time until ALP. But assume for a moment that you aren't aware that Zen is just a major Kamala backer. And so we have to get the Zen out of our lives and replace it with new, better lip pillows. We urge Tucker Carlson to accelerate this innovative step. But before that, this is pretty keynote here. How Zen conquered America. A bald eagle with a lip pillow. Philip Morris International is rehabilitating nicotine's image with its wildly popular flavored pouches, embraced by celebrities, entrepreneurs, and star athletes. Whoops. The highly addictive stimulant is making billions, but is it good for anyone other than PMI? Along the Ohio River inside a clean, well-lit factory in Owensboro, Kentucky, dozens of gleaming stainless steel machines, manned by employees in hairnets and safety glasses, churn out millions of tiny pillow-shaped white fabric pouches filled with flavored pharmaceutical-grade nicotine powder. Every 15 seconds, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, these automated machines fill a white plastic can the size of a hockey puck with 15 pouches. In a few days' time, containers of the wildly in-demand Zen will appear in convenience stores, gas stations, and bodegas across the United States. A few days after that, the shelves will reliably empty, and retailers will be begging Philip Morris International, which owns Zen's manufacturer, Swedish Match, for more. Elizabeth Leary, who has managed River's Edge Tobacco Outlet in Owensboro for a decade, says she has never sold a nicotine product with such fervent acolytes. 50% of my customers come here for Zyn, Leary says, explaining that she's constantly out of stock despite being just a few miles from the factory. I've never seen a product this popular. By the end of 2024, Stamford, Connecticut-based PMI expects to sell as much as 580 million cans of Zyn, a 50% increase over the 385 million sold last year. Forbes estimates that Zyn sales, which PMI does not break out in public filings, generated $1.3 billion last year, about 3.7% of PMI's $35 billion in total revenue, and could hit $1.9 billion this year. Overall, PMI's smoke-free products, Zyn vaporizers, its heat-not-burn device, IQOs, and chewing tobacco, hit $12.5 billion in sales last year, up from $9.9 billion in 2022, and account for nearly 40% of the company's gross revenue as of the fourth quarter. Zyn, in particular, is insanely lucrative. A can, which comes in 10 flavors, including cinnamon, citrus, and wintergreen, retails for about $6.50. Zyn is 6 times more profitable than PMI's cigarette division, says Bonnie Herzog, an analyst for Goldman Sachs who covers the tobacco industry. And unlike cigarettes, which have been steadily declining in volume for the last decade, Zyn is in hypergrowth mode. Shipment volume in the U.S. has jumped a staggering 238% since 2020. Zyn is our fastest growing brand in the U.S., says Stacey Kennedy, the 51-year-old head of PMI's U.S. operations. It's a new business for PMI, which bought Swedish Match and its Zyn brand for $16 billion in 2022. But the Colt nicotine pouch is critical to its future. PMI makes the world's #1 cigarette brand, Marlboro, but its stated goal is eventually to stop selling cigarettes. That may sound crazy, if not improbable, given that global cigarette sales rang up $22.3 billion for the company in 2023. But PMI, which spun out of Altria in 2008, a decade after the Tobacco Master Settlement, has seen the socio-legal writing on the wall. PMI does not sell cigarettes in the U.S., but Altria does. Since then, it has invested $12 billion to create less harmful smoke-free nicotine delivery systems. I think Zyn is proof that nicotine can be used to replace more harmful products, says Kennedy, who smoked Marlboros for 10 years before switching to the IQOs, and the occasional Zyn. This year, after a supply shortage affected 60% of retailers across the country, dubbed the Zenpocalypse by consumers, PMI invested $600 million to build a new factory in Aurora, Colorado to meet demand. That facility will come online in 2026. But that new factory alone won't be enough to satisfy America's insatiable appetite for nicotine. A few miles down the river in Owensboro on a 90-degree morning in August, Kennedy steps up to a podium and announces to a crowd of locals and politicians, including Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, that PMI is investing $232 million to end the Zenpocalypse for good by expanding the Owensboro factory by 40% and adding 450 new full-time jobs. Soon it will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. By the end of 2025, Kennedy estimates Swedish Match can manufacture 900 million Zyn containers. That could bring Zyn sales to $2.9 billion, Forbes estimates. This will ease the squeeze on what's been a bit of a supply constraint, Kennedy says. Last fiscal year, total U.S. nicotine retail sales hit $76 billion, down 3.2% from 2022, with sales of cigarettes and vapes dropping 5.2% and 8.3% respectively. Smokeless products, including pouches by contrast, are up nearly 12% for the year, the only segment to post growth. Every tobacco company has its own brand of nicotine pouches, but with Zyn, PMI controls nearly 70% of the market. While pouches have successfully divorced nicotine from the cigarette, they still have health risks. For one, nicotine is ferociously addictive. Not necessarily a health risk. It is also a vasoconstrictor and raises blood pressure. Cancer seems to be less of a concern. A Swedish Match-funded study found that pouches contain, quote, below the respective limit of quantification of cancer-causing tobacco-specific nitrosamines. The study also found that Zyn contains low levels of other harmful chemicals, including ammonia, chromium, formaldehyde, and trace amounts of nickel. Interesting that I don't remember if it mentions it anywhere else in the article, but I don't see any reference here to the testosterone boosting effects of it. Curious. Meanwhile, Zyn and other nicotine pouches have not been authorized by the FDA for sale, although Swedish Match filed an application in March of 2020. This means the products are technically illegal, but the FDA is allowing them to stay on the market while the agency reviews applications. The Attorney General of Washington, D.C. is investigating PMI and Swedish Match for violating the city's ban on selling flavored tobacco products through its website. PMI shut down online sales after receiving the subpoena earlier this year, but there are at least 5 lawsuits alleging that PMI is marketing Zyn to minors. Zyn comes in a brightly colored can and looks similar to a container of Icebreaker's mints. Isn't this insane that they filed an application in March of 2020? So it's been like 4.5 years. but the agency is just still reviewing applications, and they're operating technically illegally with just a carve-out. Which means at any point they could come back and say, hey, for the last 4.5 years, you've been operating illegally while we reviewed your application, and now we're going to fine you for it. And of course, this phenomenon exists just all throughout the administrative state. Scott Schlesinger, a Florida-based attorney who recently filed a class action against PMI and Swedish Match, says he's seen all this before. Zen is Juul 2.0, says Schlesinger, who previously led a successful lawsuit against Ultra and his popular Juul vaporizer, which was blamed for a sharp rise in teen vaping. It's a reboot. Kennedy insists that PMI is marketing Zen only to adults who already smoke or use nicotine. We believe the complaint is without merit, and we will vigorously defend against it, she says. For now, CDC data is on PMI's side. In this year's National Youth Tobacco Survey, just 1.8% of middle and high school students admit to using nicotine pouches, while 5.9% currently vape. But since Instagram and TikTok have become littered with Zinfluencers celebrating their love for the pouches, aka lip pillows, the FDA has said it is keeping an eye on the, quote, potential increased popularity of these products among youth. Plenty of famous adults are caught up in the viral memes and wild claims on the Zinternet. Political commentator Tucker Carlson, aka Tucker Carlson, jokingly claimed that nicotine boosts sexual performance. Jokingly claimed. He didn't joke at all. Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen confessed that throwing in a few Zins is a secret trick for his training regimen. And earlier this year, billionaire Peter Thiel told The Atlantic that he thinks nicotine increases IQ by 10 points. He doesn't just think that, it's been demonstrated. White Boy Summer is moving forward unabated. January 6 milligrams insurrection. Oh my God. That's so good. January 6 milligrams insurrectionist. That's a great band name right there. Josh Ham says, I bet Tucker's pouches will be even better, less heavy metals. Yeah, I definitely hope so. And I agree here, Straight Buster. He says, I've switched to Rogue, but I'm still calling them Zins. It's like Kleenex. Exactly. The Zin name is just too good. Too many puns. Hit the oinks in the chat. My wife is calling for oinks in honor of Pig Dirk, my son's best friend. Give me some oinks in the chat and hit the like button. We're coming on down to the end here. Going to finish up this article, and then I got a great thread of ideas for dad activities. This is throwing red meat out for my wife. I'm taking notes. The pouches have even entered the presidential election. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance has been photographed holding a container of Zyn, while on the other side of the aisle, Tim Walz leveled a 95% tax on Zyn and other nicotine products as governor of Minnesota. You don't need to know anymore. Like, this should decide the election right here. J.D. Vance has been photographed holding a container of Zyn. Meanwhile, Tampon Tim levied a 95% tax on Zyn. The war on testosterone. And then here you go. Here's the reference that brought this article to my attention. 2,000 miles away from Owensboro, Isaiah Taylor, the 25-year-old CEO and founder of Valar Atomics, a 15-person El Segundo, California energy startup with $3.5 million in funding, has a photo of NASA engineers during the Apollo 13 mission above his desk. Everyone is smoking. He says Zyn powers his business with a puck on every desk. Quote, all of our great endeavors have been achieved in the haze of nicotine, he says. Zyn is all about American excellence. And maybe excess is part of it, too. Based Gundo boys. Shout out to Isaiah Taylor, making nuclear reactors, which generate clean, low-cost hydrocarbon fuels. Our Tolkien appreciators will recognize the name Valar. He says, I enjoyed talking with Will Yakovitz at Forbes about Zyn plus Lucy, cigarettes, and American excellence. We build the future the way our fathers did. Black coffee and nicotine. White boy summer indeed. Guy says nicotine has to be consumed the old-fashioned way with fire and smoke. And he says we do that too. Julie Fredrickson says 5 days of 2 to 3 milligram extended patches fixed my lingering COVID right up. Isn't that interesting? Alexi Gerstmeyer says you should take nicotine. It's a free IQ boost. These knickknacks seem like a good substrate. Gum is good as well. Those Zen pouches seem bad. Too many toxic fillers and plastic. The toxic fillers and plastic are only a problem for you if you're weak. I just finished my last pouch of Rogue. R.I.P. The saddest thing you'll ever see. An empty an empty puck. Guess I'm going to have to go get some more. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out here for this last Astrolabe of the week. Got one last thread for you guys. Vorpal Anvil says, I never wanted to purposely develop a nicotine addiction so much in my life. Join the club. Appreciate the oinks in the chat there. My wife says, apparently Pig Dirk got a new kid for his birthday. Welcome to the family, Fridge Dirk. Welcome indeed, Fridge Dirk. I'm so glad. Who is it? It's Fridge Dirk and Rock Dirk. And then She Dirk. Is it She Dirk or She Pig? I can never remember. Remind me, Amy. Is it I think it was She Dirk. My son's great. He gets to fly on an airplane for the first time tomorrow. He's very excited about it, and he is absolutely convinced that he's going to see an erupting volcano. Because we told him that there are dormant volcanoes. He's an aspiring volcanologist. He knows that there are dormant volcanoes in the Seattle area and that we're going to fly over them and be able to look out the window and see them. And so he wants to know if they're going to be erupting. Because then he wants to be on the ground navigating the emergency situation. Gotta love the little guy. So this is from a Powerful Mutual KM Ultra 87, and I'm going to leave you guys with this. This is great weekend content for my dads out there. I'm looking forward to being able to spend a lot more time with family over the next few days. He says, I had a discussion recently with a family member about someone we know who's struggling a bit with watching his young daughter, specifically that he isn't quite sure what to do for quality fun time with his toddler. Here's a few fun and free ideas for dads out there. This is a fantastic thread. Such a great concept. Grab a little basket and head out for a walk. Collect flowers, pine cones, acorns, rocks, and leaves. You can teach them about the local flora while getting sunlight and exercise. They feel like they're on a treasure hunt and will be excited to get home and look through it all. Decorate your windows. Gel clings and window stickers are cheap and can be found at most dollar stores or grocery stores. Just sit with them and get after it. It's a natural exercise for their dexterity and creativity. Laughter is guaranteed. Building blocks and Legos are a great way to pass the time. Stack and destroy and let them explore. Don't worry about actually building something that looks functional. That comes in later years. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I was a Lego fanatic when I was a kid. Lego and Connects were my jam. My son loves building with magnetiles. That's one of his favorite things. Dance. Munchkins love music. It doesn't have to be Disney or Cocomelon Brain Slop. Put on songs you enjoyed while growing up. It's a great workout and a way to connect. The best part is you don't have to impress anyone, so dance skills are not required. It's Pig She. Okay, so I'm sorry. I apparently dead named She Dirk. It's Pig She. This one should be obvious, but not everyone has the patience for story time. When done strategically, such as after a physical activity and a snack, story time. Story time is an easy and relaxing way to spend time with the kids. Reading to them gets them interested in learning for themselves. Build a fort. It's easy, and every little kid loves to have a special small place to climb into. Prop it up and decorate the inside with their favorite toys, books, and a lantern. As a father, remember what your children want more than anything else is your time and attention. All the toys in the world mean nothing compared to your time. Give these things with a full heart, and your children will grow up to carry that love forward. God bless good dads. I'm very grateful to him for putting this out here. Super wholesome content. I love Twitter so much. Super wholesome content from a good poster, and it's a good reminder for me because life has been very, very busy lately, and I haven't spent nearly as much time with my son as I'd like to. Really looking forward to this vacation to be able to have some quality family time. So hopefully this was an inspiration to you guys, dads out there. Go employ some of these this weekend. And if you're not a dad, go become one. Go make babies. I mean, get married. Put a ring on it. Step up to the plate and make some babies. We need more. We need as many as we can get. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got. A reminder to those of you who may not have been here at the beginning. I had a great conversation with Emergent Perspective yesterday about Elon Musk as a one-man Hanseatic League. It was very good. It's a part one. We're going to get into more in the future. Right now, if you want to go watch it, become a channel member of the King Pilled. You got to go to a web browser. You can't do it from your phone. You're going to have to go to a PC, but you go become a channel member. It's $5 a month. gives you access to this first conversation that we had. Otherwise, I'll be dropping it next week because there will be no Astrolabe Monday through Thursday next week. I'll be back on Friday, but on Tuesday, I will be releasing that episode to Gen Pop. Let's see. Anything else? Go join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled and send me a little cash if you like what I'm doing here and you want me to keep doing it. I would like to keep doing it. The plan is to keep doing it, and we've got great stuff coming down the line. I can't wait to tell you all about it. But you guys are going to be drowning in all the content you can possibly dream of, everything you can imagine. It'll be very, very sentimental in a lot of ways. But that's all I got for you guys here today. So go follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled, and chat disconnected. All right. Well, I'm ending it anyways. I give you guys Hulk, and I will see you again next Friday. See you guys.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said,